What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Genfinity. Today, super excited to spotlight one of the most exciting university hackathons of the year. These guys are globetrotters, obviously. No need for an introduction, but we'll introduce them anyways. The EasyA team, Dom and Phil, recently at Harvard and leveraging all things Algorand ecosystem. Also super excited to be joined by Gabe from DevRel and Nelson and Abby, two of the winning project participants from the hackathon. So over a single weekend, and I know Dom and Phil will extrapolate on this, hundreds of students from Harvard, Wharton, Brown, and many more institutions came together to build the next generation of financial applications on Algorand. So that being said, we've got the EasyA team, Algorand, DevRel, and we have Abby and Nelson here with us today. I'm going to kick off, and maybe Phil, Dom, tell us what we were looking at here with this. And by the way, when you see a huge educational institution, like literally institution, like Harvard in the United States, that's massive, and it means a lot, obviously, for the validation of this technology and just all of the hard work that you guys have put in. Super excited to hear the story.
Fantastic, and thanks again for having us on as well. I'll kick us off with just setting the scene and talking a little bit about what we saw, what we hosted, and then I'll hand over to Dom as well, who can add a little bit of color on some more of that, and generally what happens after the hackathons as well, what we've seen happen afterwards, to set that context a little bit further. So EasyA, we have over 1 million developers, and we are the biggest Web3 education app. We host hackathons like this every so often as really flagship ones, and this one absolutely blew us away. So we had amazing participants, as you mentioned. We had them coming from all over the country, and they built some of the coolest projects. I think in particular as well, one of the coolest things, and Gabe and the rest of the team, hats off to the whole Algorand team for this. But what they were able to do is participants came, they built using AlgoKit, and compared to the previous hackathon that we did where we had an Algorand track, this was about 3 or so years ago, completely different development experience. And you can see from the projects. And so for everybody who's watching right now and thinking, what can I build on Algorand? And what can I actually continue to do afterwards? And what sort of applications should I be thinking of? This will set the scene perfectly, because our participants, they had 36 hours at the campus to actually continue, just actually start their projects, not even continue, actually just to start their projects and build them through to an MVP. And they were just able to do an amazing job. You'll see a particularly cool example from Nelson and Abby shortly. I'll hand over to Dom to explain a little bit more and set the context for what happens after the hackathon. So the pathway that these projects are on right now.
Definitely. Cool. Thanks, Phil, for that introduction. Yeah, great to have Nelson and Abby here, some of our grand prize winners from the Algorand EasyA Hackathon at Harvard. And like Phil said, the hackathons were a great place for people to come together, smart, talented people to really launch ideas on blockchains such as Algorand. And for us, the goal is not only to see those projects come to life at the hackathon, but actually to see them through to, raising maybe their first round, building a product, iterating on MVP, and then actually going to build long-term companies in the space. And so for us, that's why we're always very excited to bring amazing teams on like Percival and others to showcase what they're building and obviously get them, the users, and obviously give everyone watching a first look at what they're building so that you could be one of their first users too. And so for us, it's really cool to have them explain what they're going to build as well on this show. And, for us, over the last couple of years, some amazing companies have actually come out of EasyA hackathons and the different initiatives we've had for the space and for, crypto and AI as well. You might have heard of Cognition AI. They're a massive AI company valued at over $10 billion. They came out of an EasyA hackathon, actually, at Harvard. So Abby and Nelson could be well on their way to following in their footsteps and building the next huge crypto startup. So very excited to have them on the show, and happy to be here with Gabe and Ryan as well. I think, shout out to the Algorand team as well for making the weekend such a big success. And obviously now many of the teams are in touch to continue building. So yeah, very excited for the future of Algorand and the crypto space in general.
Awesome. Well, Gabe, before we get into Nelson and Abby here, because I'm super excited. I actually was looking at your guys' project before this, and I've got some pretty interesting questions. I love what you guys are doing. Gabe, I think it's a testament to all of the work that you guys have put in to AlgoKit for projects and participants to come in with, I think Phil mentioned 36 hours, basically from start to minimum viable product. And I'm sure we could look back a handful of years across all of crypto, and that probably wouldn't have been possible in like 2020, 2021. But you guys have spent a ton of time, whether it be TypeScript integration, I think more recently, as well as what's the AI one, the big one that you guys did last year with AlgoKit 2.0, I think. But Gabe, maybe just broad thoughts before we dig into the weeds on just how far and how the user experience journey for developers coming into Algorand has come over the years, and your thoughts on an initiative like this hackathon.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It's super awesome to be up here and meeting you all again since the last hackathon. And yeah, our developer experience definitely has grown by leaps and bounds, like Phil kind of alluded to. I think the last time we had a hackathon was probably a few years ago, and that was before we shipped AlgoKit. We didn't have native TypeScript and Python to write smart contracts. And I was very impressed with what everyone was able to come up with. I mean, we really had some projects that were functioning from end to end. They did a great job on their presentation. They had enough time to polish their pitch. And it was a great experience for us to sort of battle test our toolkit to see like what sort of issues people are running into and to see where we can improve. So it was great for us. And I definitely think being able to show up to these hackathons with some of our tooling and the developer experience, and having students actually be able to create something that's meaningful and that could potentially become like a funded company, right? It's great for us to see that. It's kind of a testament to the work that we're doing. And yeah, big shout out to the technical team at Algorand Foundation for just killing it and doing great work. And yeah, it was an awesome experience.
Awesome. Well, I want to get into the weeds with Percival here. And again, congrats to you guys on winning. I think it was the Shark Tank portion from what I was reading before this. So I guess we'll start off with intros because I tend to get excited and ahead of myself with the way that I ask questions. So Abby, maybe if you could provide an intro of yourself, who you are, if you're going to school, what made you interested in blockchain, the whole kind of spiel as far as an intro, and then we'll move over to Nelson.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick little intro. My name is Abby. I'm a sophomore at Harvard studying government. And my kind of part of this project that where Nelson and I came together was I am a content creator. So I've been a content creator for a few years now, recently doing lifestyle, but before I used to do a lot of content on my reptiles. I have 4 reptiles, a bearded dragon, crested gecko, 2 leopard geckos. So that's kind of where all this content creation stuff started. But Nelson and I kind of met through rowing. I'm a coxswain at Harvard's rowing team on the heavyweights. So I coxed him over the summer. Nelson, which you'll learn about in a few minutes, goes to Wesleyan, but we worked together over the summer. So I coxed him over the summer and we came together for this project. So yeah, that's kind of how this came to be.
Awesome. Nelson, floor is yours.
Yeah, totally. I mean, thanks for setting this up. So I'm from Cambridge actually, so I was right next door, the hackathon anyway, and so yeah, I'm at Wesleyan, a senior, and I spent the summer at a U23 program with Abby rowing. We also raced at Canadian Henley. We were in an Airbnb with like 12 or 13 people and maybe 4 bedrooms. So it's a real litmus test on if you can spend time with somebody and work with them effectively. And so going into the hackathon, I reached out to Phil before just to chat, University of Cambridge, because I studied at Pembroke College. And he was gracious enough to extend an invite. The hackathon, I was thinking through, I was reading the docs beforehand, and I'd had this idea about, seeing all these comments on TikToks of like, I'm investing in this video. I think it's going to go over 100K likes or over 1 million views. And we'd seen all these comments on Abby's TikToks and thousands of other TikToks. And so we're like, is there a way to spin this for a hackathon? And so we ultimately headed in, and that's what we pitched, enabled by the Algorand ecosystem and some of their proprietary technology, and ultimately lucky enough to win. But going forward, I mean, Phil and Dom and even the Algorand team has been super helpful in launching us, because coming off an EasyA hackathon win, you get a ton of support from these guys, but also from the ecosystem in general. I mean, a lot of VCs reaching out, a lot of engineers and people that want to work on the product. So it's been a super exciting last 3 weeks, and we're making really good progress.
That's awesome. So for those that, and I know you kind of got into it a little bit, but I think this is a really interesting use case, especially given kind of the attention economy that we all live in right now. And for those that are kind of crypto native, we do see like prediction markets, but I've never kind of really seen it done in the way that you guys have taken it. And it's almost like, I've had the opportunity to be involved in some of these hackathons. And for me, like kind of the most interesting ideas are some of the ones that are seemingly the most simple, like stuff that we do every day. And we do engage with social media every day. People's attention is drawn in certain directions every day. So maybe expand a little bit on what you guys built here with Percival, with the product wise, either Abby or Nelson, whichever one of you guys wants to take this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do have in the crypto ecosystem, you have some products like Zora, for example, that are trying to build a native content prediction market kind of platform where they're tokenizing videos and then you're buying those tokens to try to invest, quote unquote, on those videos. We think that is a viable approach, but we wanted to utilize the existing content channels. So we wanted to utilize people are already scrolling on Instagram Reels, already scrolling on TikTok. How can we bring that in and make that a part of our product rather than trying to build natively right off the bat? And so that's kind of the motivation behind utilizing the everyday flow. But yeah, it's effectively you're scrolling on TikTok and you can find a pre-viral video and share it in through the share sheet into our app. And obviously the UI has definitely evolved a lot since this pretty primitive sketch here. But you can predict it's going to go over our virality line or under our virality line, and it's a pari-mutual system. So you're betting peer-to-peer, and creators get a percent of the volume on the video. So there's incentivized for the creator economy as well.
That's awesome. Phil or Dom, I think it's really cool because we see obviously the prevailing narrative, and it's not even really a narrative because it's actually happening across crypto over the past, let's say 18 to 24 months, is real world assets. And I think one of the most slept on things, at least my thought process is we eventually get to a point where our data and our actions and our attention is a real world asset and we are put back into that value loop. I think this is kind of like the iteration of it is like, where's your attention spent? Most people are already scrolling across different social media, whether they're on X, where this video will be, or Instagram, or whatever it may be. What do you guys think, just kind of in general, when you see such innovative use cases like this that kind of tie in a lot of different facets, like the attention economy stuff, real world assets, because data is a real world asset, and just kind of the prediction markets type stuff based on like social media and virality of posts and stuff like that?
Really, really good question. And something I've thought about a lot because there's lots of different pieces that this type of product and this type of product in crypto doesn't necessarily fit perfectly into. Is it just finance? Well, it's not really payments. Is it just entertainment? Well, it's more than just entertainment, right? That was previously TikTok. Sort of blurs the lines between a lot of different things. I think Vlad Tenev also was trying to tease apart this distinction when he talked about what are prediction markets, right? It's like, is it a bit of finance? Yeah, but it's not quite just finance. Is it in trading? Got a bit of trading in there, of course. It's like very heavily trading based, but it's also gamified. It's pretty fun. There's also elements of betting involved as well. So it straddles the line between all these different things. I think that what is very exciting about Percival is it's fitting into this broader macro trend that we're seeing that none of us can really quite exactly put our fingers on, but everybody's clearly very, very captivated by. I think we've seen early leaders here with Polymarket, obviously Kalshi being the more regulated side. We have seen Pump Fun absolutely take off, Pump Fun and what they've been doing with streaming. I think all of these early leaders right now, I was listening to a podcast actually around the time when we were hosting this hackathon in Boston. I think Carl Samani over in the Solana ecosystem has been talking about this idea of financial entertainment. And I think that we've seen that also in previous generations. We've seen, for example, Jim Cramer doing his financial entertainment. We have seen people like Roaring Kitty as well during COVID, people just across the board who are making finance fun and entertaining. And I think that Nelson and Abby are at the forefront of this new type of finance, which is actually getting more and more people involved. I think people look at things like this and might try to sometimes write it off early on, being like, oh, well, you're making, finance like a little bit, too exciting, or, it's like, you shouldn't just be investing off a TikTok post or whatever. But this is stuff that people are already doing. And I think it's the same sort of criticism that people heard at things like Robinhood when they said, oh, well, you're gamifying investing. Well, actually, this fits into discretionary spend. And this is something that I remember Vlad Tenev talked about as well, which was there's this category of spending that people would otherwise just, it's discretionary spending. People would otherwise have just been spending it on like, going to the movies or going somewhere else, or, buying something. This is actually now investing. And I think it's actually building up really cool, nice, neat habits that I think that, Nelson and Abby are really tapping into. As Nelson said, it's like, I'm investing in this post at X number of views or X number of likes. I think this is like actually turning that into a real investment that is very, very exciting, getting more people access to these other opportunities that, maybe they feel alienated from. Like, nobody wants to compete with a hedge fund or like, in the stock market. This is something that people can actually grok and understand. So yeah, I mean, so many things to unpack there, but it's very, very exciting for me.
I'm curious. I know. So like, you mentioned Vlad Tenev, and my head went in the direction of his quote yesterday. I mean, he literally quoted yesterday, "Is like tokenization is going to eat the entire the entire financial system." I want to ask Dom though, because I think when we see things that integrate this technology with the way that we interact on a daily basis, and social media is probably that primary thing. I mean, there's either people are on Facebook or Instagram. And I mean, I know the older generations kind of still on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it may be. One of those use cases in crypto that we haven't seen take off. And I think that it's because it's almost like everybody's like, well, I'm just going to invent my own social media platform, which is great. And maybe there is a platform that does that. But I think maybe the real kicker here is like, why don't we just integrate with what everybody's already using, which is like Twitter, Instagram, wherever it may be. Gaming as a sidebar is another example of that. But Dom, I would love your thought process here on where we're at with the technology being able to integrate with things that people already use. People are already using Instagram. People are already using X and Twitter. And if you think that has legs, and we would expect that trend to continue in kind of a meaningful way, instead of I'm gonna build an MVP of a new social media app and try to gain users type thing, which is, by the way, a really good initiative. It's just like, I told you I'll get excited, guys. Sorry.
No, I mean, I see your point. I think the technology, I don't think it's a matter of technology being the limiting factor here. I think it's more that if you work with those big tech companies, they're still relatively reluctant to new technologies that are really going to change the way that they do business. So, for example, working with something like a Twitter or an X or, Meta or Google, they obviously are massive companies and they have their ways of doing things, and they have a long product roadmap that, they can't just change to incorporate different things or different new technologies. And I think that's really the main barrier, big organizations being resistant to change. And I think on the flip side, that presents a really good opportunity actually for companies like Percival and for these other new nimble startups who are able to actually incorporate, blockchain and all of these really cool new ways of doing things that, give the end user a much better experience. And I think that's really actually where a lot of these startups will be able to succeed well, is moving fast, breaking things along the way, and actually being able to get things into the user's hands and test and rapidly iterate. So I think that's actually a very unique opportunity for these new startups, especially in the blockchain space, and gives new ideas a great place to shine. And you shouldn't be worried about those bigger companies, because I think for them, obviously they have blockchain in their roadmaps and they are focused on it. But I think the real innovation is going to come from those companies that are going to be blockchain first, as opposed to existing companies integrating blockchains into their existing workflows.
I want to ask Nelson and Abby what the experience, before I forget, was like to build on Algorand. I know that Phil mentioned like 36 hours from basically start to completion of the MVP is not a lot of time, but what was your guys' experience with like the developer tooling? I know you mentioned, Nelson, that like the continuing support is really great, but just kind of overall experience would be awesome to hear from both you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think candidly, like we're pitching a product, and thinking about how Algorand fits into that product was a really key part of the pitch and really our ideation process. But I mean, some things like ARC-19 NFTs, like adaptable metadata NFTs, atomized payments, really important for a tool like this, where we can pay out a creator, a winner, and our fees in one go, and obviously essentially feeless transactions, like really, really minimal gas fees. All reasons why we wanted to do this on Algorand, and all reasons that we factored into the product itself. So there's no doubt that it's a fantastic dev set. Going forward, we're building out our MVP right now, and we'll be able to speak more to that once we've launched it in a few days.
That's awesome. I want to ask both you guys, because I know, well, and Abby, I know that you probably have a lot, maybe thoughts on this, because you mentioned that you have done a ton of content creation, so you have that experience. I think one of the issues that we see, and this isn't a curveball, it's just like maybe a sidebar question. In crypto and in blockchain, like a lot of crypto lives on Twitter, lives on X, and it's hard to tell what real engagement is versus like fake engagement and bots and things like that. So I think when we think about like prediction markets and like virality of posts and stuff like that, there's an opportunity to integrate on chain in a way that you can like tell what's authentic versus not authentic. Do you like kind of have any thoughts? Do those problems exist on Instagram, like bots and stuff like that? Or, what opportunity do you see for like authenticity, like of something going viral versus, let's just make number go up type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue that we considered because buying views, buying followers, is an option on all social media platforms. But we kind of did the math and we decided as a group to kind of limit the amount that people can bet on a certain video or how much money they can put in, basically, to where it doesn't really make sense financially to buy the views as well as place your predictions on the virality of a video. So I think right now our line is set at $100 per video. And that just makes it so that it's honestly really hard to bot those views because you would have to work with every single person who is also like predicting the same way you are on a certain bet to reach that line of virality. So yeah, we kind of did the math and considered that and came up with a solution.
I would like have. Oh, go ahead, Nelson.
No, and I mean, I think it's important to mention that while that is a consideration for the MVP, is we want to make sure it's an authentic marketplace where people are really able to see the results of their predictions. We also, eventually, having started in this framework where we're utilizing the existing social medias, we are going to start onboarding creators onto our native platform. We just think this is a really effective way to start. And once we onboard creators into our platform, then we can get their API keys and verify views through the TikTok Creator Fund. So it's pretty substantial once we launch our MVP and we can expand those bet sizes, but this is our early days solution for sure.
So follow up for Abby here then, and I think that this is one of the, I guess, more interesting things for adoption in crypto is that you have influencers and content creators on different platforms that are just have crazy big followings. Abby, I think I was looking, and I think those are your numbers on there. You have a really big following, I think, on Instagram. But we still haven't seen and this goes back to there's social media platforms that are like native crypto. But you guys are obviously integrating with Instagram and all the stuff that everybody's already using. It's interesting to me that we don't see these big content creators, these big influencers getting into this technology because it seems like there's a ton of opportunity. And then by default, when they get in, I would imagine that their audience and their fans and their followers end up getting in. Why do you think that we still haven't seen that level of adoption yet across, all these kind of really big accounts? It seems like crypto is like this kind of niche thing that lives on crypto Twitter. Maybe I'm wrong, but just curious your thoughts, Abby.
I honestly think it's just really complicated. There's like a big barrier of entry. It's something that requires a lot of learning. It's an upward curve to kind of get into crypto. So I think the hope with Percival is that we offer both like regular money and crypto as an option. But as a result, we can slowly start to transfer users into using more crypto where those like huge volumes of payments are being made. But honestly, it is really the initial learning curve and step into opening up a crypto wallet and like just following through with all of those things. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about. And the hope is that through Percival, we kind of make this more mainstream and streamlined of a process for normal users and like people to experience.
So I want to ask all you guys, and I'm going to go with Gabe first here and circle back to you. I think number one, I think it's awesome to see. I mean, I know you guys are still in college right now, but to see a product roadmap and to see like that entrepreneurial kind of drive already with you guys not even being kind of college is wild. So I'm sure you guys are going to do massively well in the future as you guys continue on your journeys, and it's really kind of just awesome to see. But I want to ask Gabe and circle back here. I think like what's been the experience like at these educational institutions? Because I still feel like it's the Nelsons and Abbeys of the world that are going to be building out the future of blockchain and distributed ledger. And I truthfully believe that like when we look at this space 10 or 15 years from now, it's going to be the people that are boots on the ground, probably a little bit younger than myself, that are that are making the user experience a little bit better. But what's been the experience at a Harvard, at wherever it may be, with kind of, I don't want to say the younger generation, but you get kind of where I'm going with the question, Gabe, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was interesting to me because we are the Algorand Foundation. We're moving to the US, so we're incorporated in Singapore, and we're doing this big push back to the US now that regulations have essentially cleared up and they've paved the way for our industry to actually innovate in all of these different areas, like what Abby and Nelson are doing. And it was kind of a reminder of like just like the culture, the depth of talent, um, being like watching Nelson and Abby just like kill this pitch. And I've worked at like startup accelerators and stuff. Like it was so polished. It was so like they were so well practiced. That's something that's really unique to the American market in general because we have this culture of entrepreneurialism and startups. And I think it's exciting for us. Because that's going to be the basis of integrating blockchain in all of these different industries, right? Like that's going to be where all of this innovation is really coming from. And going back to sort of like the friction and onboarding, it is like complicated. It's tough to get started. There's also a lot of like conceptual differences. Like you have to think about crypto a bit differently than you would like, you know, a traditional bank. Like this idea of having custody of your own keys, right? That's much different from like a banking relationship. And so I think the younger generation is much more well poised to kind of become crypto native and like really drive this stuff forward. But yeah, overall, super bullish. It's really impressive to see like young, motivated students what they can come up with in just like 36 hours. And yeah, bullish on America, bullish on the American market. And I think it's going to be like a great cycle for crypto. Like this is going to be unlike the others. I think we're finally like going to be seeing like real transformative use cases.
Dom, I saw you on mute for a second. I'm curious your thoughts. Just kind of traveling. You guys are globetrotters, and I've said it like so many times. I don't know if I've ever seen as busy of everybody's busy in Web3 and crypto, but you guys are like really busy. What's your experience been like traveling to Harvard and everywhere else? And we'll go over the London hackathon here before we ramp down too. But I'll go to Dom, Phil, and then just kind of circle around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to echo Gabe, I think everything he said was spot on. I think, you know, across the US, Asia, Europe as well, I think, you know, everyone is super bullish on the space. And, you know, a lot of big companies, obviously, from, you know, the banks to, you know, other sectors, healthcare, et cetera, all looking at how to integrate blockchain into their existing workflows. I think, you know, obviously, you know, Phil and I were just at the SEC as well in New York, meeting up with them and really talking about how we can build sustainable and really sort of conducive legislature for new startups and new companies in the space. And I think the sentiment has really changed in the US, you know, even over the last sort of year and a bit since, you know, new leadership has come in. And I think, you know, everyone is super enthusiastic about what can be done in the crypto space. Obviously, you know, new tokens, ETFs, all sorts of things are coming. And obviously with that comes new capital. And that obviously benefits the existing ecosystems, existing tokens. There's more money to go around, more money to be made by retail investors, but also more funding to be brought. And exactly on the screen, you can see, you know, we met with Hester Pierce, and she's made it very clear as well that, you know, we want to support new companies coming into the crypto space. And rather than trying to push them away like previous leadership might have done. We're actually going to encourage them to found and launch startups in the crypto and blockchain space. And that's why, of course, we do so many hackathons to really bring in all these smart people and obviously retain them in the space and help them launch some truly incredible companies like Percival and others. So yeah, very excited, and obviously excited to share more about the London Algorand Hackathon coming up very soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch up the question for Phil, and then we'll ramp down here, guys. And I appreciate everybody's time today. This is like more of a curiosity question from my stance. You guys have done so many of these hackathons, and it's kind of awesome to watch. And it's across multiple ecosystems too. I know Algorand has been a huge integration for you guys, which was just this year. But you guys kind of have that bird's eye view at what's going on across the entire space, which I think is very powerful. And we could probably have a whole space about that. But what has kind of been the evolution of what you guys have seen from what people are building over the past few years? Is it kind of abstracting away complexity, more real world use cases? Like, what excites you from what you're seeing, Phil? And then we'll close out here, guys, and talk about the future.
It's a really good question. I think, we've hosted hackathons over the years now. I think we could scope it to this particular cycle. I first got into the space in 2013 through Bitcoin mining. Things were very different back then, but we really started hosting these hackathons in full force from about 2022. So back then, this was like, just coming towards the end of the last bull market, beginning of of the last crypto ice age that we just experienced. And around then, I think the interesting thing is, I think the same ideas, mostly by and large, were still around. It's just that the way that they were being implemented was quite different. So a great example is SocialFi. There are a lot of people, and I think you mentioned this earlier as well, touched on this. A lot of people were building stuff which was like the Web3 analog of Facebook or the Web3 analog of Instagram. A lot of people were building like Web3 Uber. Basically it was like taking these different ideas and then building them out on chain. And I think what we've seen is that the same overall high level concept has been built out. Like, we now have SocialFi on chain, right? With what we see going on with things like Pump Fun. But the form which that took was completely different. And I don't think many people expected that would be what SocialFi really would look like. And it's more into this financial entertainment, sort of, social gamified thing, rather than what people thought, which was like, oh, you go on Facebook and you get, or you go on the Web3 equivalent of Facebook and you get paid for posting or whatever.
Yeah.
it's just become very different. So I think macro level, what a lot of us were talking about many years ago is still, the same. The overall vision is still there, and it's actually coming to fruition now. But the way that it's actually coming to fruition is very different. I think Abby and Nelson are really at the forefront of a lot of that as well. It's taking what we previously had thought would be the broad macro standpoint and direction, and they are very much actually implementing in the way that people nowadays actually want to use these products. Because it's no good just to say, hey, come on to Web3, come on to Web3 TikTok because it's Web3. People don't care about that. You got to give them an incentive. And I think that's what we've seen over the years. It's that all of these things are coming together, but they're coming together maybe in ways that we didn't initially expect.
I think what we're going to see over time is it almost is like we always have this back to the future thing that occurs with blockchain and crypto. Like micropayments were a kind of a trendy thing in 2018, 2019. Then they went away because they were too early for their time. And now I see micropayments everywhere again. It's the same thing with, fractional ownership of like a Pablo Picasso and stuff like that. That stuff was just too niche to get widely adopted. But I guarantee you, 4 or 5 years from now, that's going to be the most trendiest thing, is you can fractionally own a piece of fine art or a Lambo or whatever. So it's always interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to, sorry, go ahead.
I agree. No, I agree. And just to add to that, I think people often look at these different cycles and think, oh, that idea failed that cycle. But it's very much not a failure. It's that we tried to push and we made progress and we figured out what didn't work. But at the end of the day, we still made progress in that respect. So yeah, great point.
I want to go to Abby and Nelson and let you guys close us out here. So any forward-looking statements, anything I might have missed, thoughts on building on Algorand, wherever you guys want to take it, product roadmap. And Abby, I'll let you go first.
I think our product roadmap is a little bit outdated, but what we're really focusing on right now is making this super creator focused. So really incentivizing creators to use our platform by giving them a percent of all earnings that are all like money that's placed in on their videos. So that's one thing that we've been really discussing and like working on how we're going to get and onboard our creators. We also have a wait list for anyone who would like to use or be the first person to try out our app, which is percivalapp.com. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Nelson.
Yeah, absolutely. We're launching our MVP in a few days. We've kind of gotten it together, and we're really looking forward to in a few weeks, or honestly less than that. We're gonna host a competition where we're gonna get a bunch of really interesting people like Phil and Dom and Gabe together, investors, advisors, founders, etc. And they're all gonna come in and for a week we're gonna give them 1,000 tokens to start off, and they're gonna bet, and whoever wins that. Whoever has the highest amount of tokens at the end is going to win a prize, cash and tokens. And so we think it's going to be a really fun way to test out our value add, and we're excited to do that. And it's going to be open to some other people outside of founders and investors as well. So if you join that wait list, then we'll give you a shot.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. I wish I would have had this website earlier. I would have been, I'd have had this up on static throughout the interview. I want to go over to either Dom or Phil, or maybe Gabe. I'll start with Gabe. Can you talk a little bit about what Hackathon is coming up in London, and just kind of forward-looking statements from you, and then we'll round out with Phil and Dom.
Yeah, sure. So we've got a hackathon coming up, I believe, in about a week and a half. So with EasyA, Phil and Dom really put on a really fantastic time. They do a really good job. We're going to be sending Joran from our developer relations team to help out the students there, and expecting to see the same, like just really high quality projects come out of these hackathons. Like it's just really awesome being able to see what these students can come up with in such a short amount of time, and just the creativity, right? Because like I really feel like it's a wide open field now in this industry, and we're going to see a lot of really creative solutions to a lot of different problems. And yeah, for us, we're focused on our 2025 roadmap. We're going to continue trying to make the developer experience as smooth as possible, make it as frictionless as possible. We're focused on a lot of quantum security stuff. We want to make sure we're ready, since the crypto is operating in like a sort of artificially constrained environment due to regulations, if we're being completely honest. And now I think that that's been cleared away. I think we're going to see like a sort of like a Cambrian explosion of use cases. And I think blockchains are going to have to be ready for that. Like they're going to have to scale. And Algorand, I think, is ready. We've had no downtime. We've made a lot of progress on being quantum secure, at least resistant, and we're going to continue doing that just so we can meet the scale that's going to be needed in the near future.
I think also you guys, from an ecosystem standpoint, just got an absolute legend for CTO and Nick Bougalis. The guy was like instrumental in building out the XRPL. So I think that is going to be really exciting to watch. And I'm going to hopefully try to get an interview with him at some point soon, because that's like a bucket list interview. I'll go with Dom first, and then we'll close out with Phil. But Dom, forward-looking statements, anything I might have missed. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining today.
I think main thing is, yeah, all eyes on the next hackathon in London with Algorand. I think, if you're watching from afar, definitely keep an eye on our Twitter. We'll be posting live updates on what's going on in London. Of course, you saw everything that was happening in Boston, all the excitement, all the amazing projects get built in real time. We'll be doing the same thing. Our team's always super active on socials, blogging it, vlogging it, and making all sorts of content. So definitely keep your eyes out at EasyA_app on X, and make sure that you're following so that you can keep up to date with what's happening and be the first to know as well. And if any of the projects seem really cool to you, you can be one of their first users, very much like Percival here. And check out percivalapp.com. Definitely a great platform for you to get early access in and join the waitlist before it fills up.
All right, Phil, close us out here.
But number one, come along to the EasyA Hackathon, as Dom mentioned, and also go download the EasyA app. We have an amazing set of modules on Algorand in the EasyA app. So even if you can't make it out to the hackathon, it is the best place to just get started learning really, really easily. You could be watching this on your phone, on the train, you could be on the bus, you could be sitting hopefully as a passenger in the car, not driving, and just go ahead and learn about what this ecosystem is all about. And second of all, best of luck to Abby and Nelson as well. I think they are showing us what you can do in this amazing ecosystem. The MVP sounds like Nelson is launching in just a couple of days, right? So keep an eye out for that. Sign up for their waitlist. I'm very, very excited to actually start using your app. I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks. You have been absolutely killing it. So massive hats off to Nelson and Abby. And for everybody else who's thinking about starting and building on Algorand, just shows what you can do in such a short space of time. So yeah, keep an eye out for them. Make sure you're following their socials, and keep an eye out on Percival app as well. These two are going to crush it.
Awesome. Well, I want to give a huge shout out to EasyA, Algorand, and the Percival team for joining us today, and to everybody out there building at the intersection of finance and technology. Make sure you guys give EasyA and the Algorand Foundation a follow. Stay tuned for Percival app at percivalapp.com. You can sign up for that wait list and learn more. And it's always a good sign. I've done enough of these interviews. Whenever I pull up a screenshot that's maybe a couple of weeks old and they're like, that's not current, it's we're way ahead of that. So that's always a good sign from a builder standpoint. And then definitely check out the Algorand and EasyA London Hackathon, which is October 18th and 19th. I can see here there's another 36 hours. Algorand dev tools are going to get so good that eventually maybe they just do like 12-hour sprints. Anyways, that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and thank you all for joining. Hang out with me here for a second to make sure I get this full recording, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thanks for having us, Ryan.